the mainstream media, the disappointing, bitterly disappointing, captured and corrupt mainstream media is banging on and on about Partygate. Can there be a person left alive that hasn't heard of Partygate? It drives me to distraction. There are rising calls for the whole thing to be sort of moved beyond. You know, there's people shouting for amnesties and, you know, let's just stop looking for, consequences for anyone in the aftermath of all of that which falls under the umbrella of Partygate. And I think that is a consequence of something else that's deliberate and intentional. In amongst everything else, the psyops have sought to wear us down, a kind of war of attrition, to make people so fed up hearing about the same old things that they're prepared to contemplate it's being brushed under the carpet. You know, just to not hear about it anymore is increasingly becoming desirable for many people, too many people. I tell you what it is. It's because in amongst all of the incessant reporting of Partygate, you know, which for someone who's just arrived from Saturn and has been unaware, it's an umbrella term that's applied to, you know, while the mass of the population of Britain were under draconian restrictions and regulations supposedly to protect one and all from COVID, the people in number 10, be that elected representatives or members of staff or bureaucrats or whoever, were flouting the same regulations. And Partygate is the umbrella term for, you know, what has culminated in, you know, a report being put together by the Privileges Committee about what Boris Johnson, Prime Minister at the time, did or didn't do, did or did not sanction. I mean, I am as tired of it as the next person, but as I say, a psyop has gone on to make us miss the obvious, to make us miss the elephant in the room. I'll read you from, here's a bit of written evidence, okay, submitted by some or other official in number 10, and it was submitted to and became part of the inquiry and the report that the Privileges Committee has just submitted, and it was written evidence. It was obtained in the form of written evidence, and it was received on the 7th of February 2023. I quote: "During the pandemic, number 10, that's number 10 Downing Street, the seat of government in the UK, despite setting the rule to the country, was slow to enforce any rule in the building. The press office wine time Fridays continued throughout. Social distancing was not enforced and mask wearing was not enforced. We don't know who this is from, don't know who the official is. I once inquired to," and here it's redacted, you know, the black pen's been taken so you can't see who this information was inquired of. "I once inquired to blank 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 in March 2020 whether we should be wearing masks, and was told the science advice was that there was no point and that it had very little effect on the spread of COVID." So that's what this official was being told within number 10 in March 2020. This was all part of a wider culture of not adhering to the rules. Number 10 was like an island oasis of normality. Operational notes were sent out from the security team to be mindful of the cameras outside the door. Right, open brackets. Remember to put your mask on before you step outside in case someone takes your picture. Not to go out in groups and to social distance. It was all a pantomime. That's what it says. It was all a pantomime. Birthday parties, leaving parties and end of work gatherings all continued as normal. Right. Now, people are outraged at testimony like this, but I would say that to be outraged is one thing, but it's to miss the point entirely. The point is not that in number 10 they were ignoring their own rules. And let's broaden this out. There's a COVID inquiry going on at the moment, apparently, although you'd hardly know because there is zero coverage of it in the mainstream media. And, I've been asking for a while who got the contract for the whitewash, because you just know that anyone and everyone is going to be exonerated of any and all wrongdoing. Anyway, we'll get to that. But the point is, in addition to what was going on in number 10, which is the domain of the ruling party, which was the Conservative Party, everybody, they were all at it. Keir Starmer's Labour, he's filmed in some offices somewhere, standing around, having curry and drinking beer with these co-Labourite conspirators. They were all at it. This is nothing that was distinctly number 10. However, number 10 were making the rules. But Labour and the rest of them were on their hind legs demanding that the rules be harder, should last for longer, should have been brought in quicker anyway. So they were all complicit in the same nonsense. The point is not that they, in number 10 and elsewhere, ignored the regulations that were being ruthlessly enforced on the public. And people were being arrested. People are still facing trial now. There are still trials playing out or about to play out in the case of people accused of this, that and the other breach of regulations. It's not about that. The point is that in number 10 and elsewhere in Westminster, they knew there was nothing to fear from COVID. They had come to that conclusion because they had access to realistic data. They knew in the Conservative Party, in the Labour Party, in the Liberals, all of them, SNP, they knew there was nothing to fear. And yet they enforced a regime under which lives were destroyed. Uncounted numbers of lives were destroyed, and the economy of this country was driven off a cliff. I mean, even now, none of the damage is being admitted to. Even now, no one has stepped up to accept responsibility for all of this. Andrew Bridgen, who was a Conservative MP for West Leicestershire, he has now crossed the aisle, or whatever as they say, and he's now an elected. He's not an elected. He's now changed his allegiance to the Reclaim Party. But Andrew Bridgen MP keeps asking for a debate in the Commons about excess deaths, vaccine harms, and he gets nowhere. He keeps asking, and he keeps on having that request refused. Excess deaths are still running high in this country. I watched, just to remind myself, some of the latest stuff on YouTube by Dr. John Campbell, who's an absolute authority on this. He studies the official government data like nobody else, and puts out YouTube videos where he gives his assessment of what's being said. And official data being quoted within the last few weeks by Dr. John Campbell shows that excess deaths are continuing in 2023. Excess deaths means that more people are dying than when compared to the 5-year average or whatever. People are dying now who, in every respect that matters, shouldn't be dying. They're not dying of anything to do with COVID. It says as much in the official ONS government data that these excess deaths, thousands of them every month, are nothing to do with COVID. They are about cardiovascular, to do with your heart, to do with your blood circulation. They're to do with stroke. But deaths from anything respiratory disease related are low. And in the mainstream media, coverage of all this is there none. Dr. John Campbell manages to find a piece in the Daily Mirror, a single headline: Brits are dying in their tens of thousands and we don't really know why. But it's a lone headline and a lone article. Dr. John, in one of the pieces I saw in the last few weeks, said that it's an underreported global phenomenon, a pandemic of non-COVID excess deaths is what we're dealing with, and no one is talking about it, no one is reporting it. But the facts of the matter are that tens of thousands more Brits than usual from say May to December 2022 are dead that shouldn't be. It's astonishing. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, nothing. Reporting next to nothing. And, that dereliction of duty is a cause for concern all on its own. I say that the powers that be are just riding it out. That's the situation in which we find ourselves. The powers that be, that's the elected representatives, that's the civil service, the bureaucrats, with a couple of honourable exceptions, every MP sitting in the House of Commons is riding it out. They refuse to acknowledge what's going on. They refuse to talk about it. They won't accede to Andrew Bridgen's requests for a debate on the excess deaths. They might as well be sitting on those benches with their fingers in their ears, la-la-lying, waiting for enough time to pass, waiting for the incessant psyops to finally make everybody so bored that they would rather just stop talking about it. And all the while the impact of the cost of lockdown, what that did to people, what being locked in their homes did to people's mental health, to their physical health, to the education of children, to the mental health of children, all of it. The inflation that's out there now that was caused by the quantitative easing, the printing of money that went on during lockdown. I say that no one in Westminster, barring Andrew Bridgen and a couple of others, none of them are there for the people. They're there for each other. And what we see in Partygate is farce, is politicians talking among themselves about each other. It's politicians talking amongst themselves about each other. These people are grotesque. These people are a travesty. What we're watching is a cover-up happening before our eyes in real time. And, I think I'll come to it in subsequent monologues in the days and weeks ahead, but I think what's finally been revealed by COVID in this instance, though it would have been revealed eventually by something else, sooner or later, is the unlawfulness of our system. Governments are not there for us. The elected representatives are not there for us. Millions of people around the country are suffering the consequences of events and measures that their representatives won't even discuss. Far less will they admit to having been party to setting them and keeping them in place. I say, you imagine a world in which real-life crime syndicates, on the model of the Krays or the Corleones or the Sopranos, were running the joint. Well, I say you don't need to imagine that, because that's the world we live in now.